In this video, you'll learn the fundamental concepts to understand how to write user stories, how I first got started writing user stories and my process, and how you can get started too. Let's get started. So what is a user story? There are three elements to a great user story: who, what, and why. The who segments your audience, the what explains the task that they would like to achieve, and the why explains the benefits that they would get from completing that task. As an aspiring product manager, I would like to learn how to write user stories so that I can apply user stories and gain experience. Product manager clearly segments my audience. Learning how to write user stories clearly defines the task that they would like to complete. And gaining experience and gaining applied knowledge is the benefit that they would like to achieve. See, that's it. It's pretty easy and straightforward. I think anyone can do it. But the challenge to writing a great user story is, number one, you want to be able to write a small iteration. Here's what you need to do. You need to have an excellent process for how you develop user stories. The user story itself is very easy to write. So the real benefit to you is being able to write a user story that someone can actually apply within a short period of time. So let's say, for example, I would like to make an improvement to a process. The first thing I want to do is look at the steps of the process. So I go through the different steps of the process, and if you can identify a major pain point, then that's where you can start. So I promised you that I was going to tell you my experience in the beginning when I first started with product management and some of the mistakes that I made. I think there's two mistakes that I made that also a lot of other people make as well when you're just getting started. Number one is when you start writing user stories, you're going to realize that there's a problem. So the first problem that you're going to realize is there's lots of different features that you could create. There's lots of different ways that you could work to optimize the product. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to build a feature just for the sake of building a feature. I've seen a lot of companies do this. A lot of people do this, and unfortunately it just doesn't work that well. One of the main issues is you create a feature, you're excited about the feature, you think the user is going to like the feature, but at the end of the day it doesn't get used or the user doesn't like the feature that much. So how can you write a user story but avoid that major pitfall that a lot of people see? So one of the things that I like to do that I've implemented in my process that I found works great for me is I use the jobs to be done framework to help me write user stories. You can find it on Amazon. It's by Wunker. It's a really great book. I'll post it below in the description. So let me break down the process for you that I use, and maybe that'll help you. Either you can use my same process or you can develop your own strategy. So the first thing that I do is I look at the jobs to be done. What task would the user like to complete? So I identify my core user, which is essentially my VIP user, and you can identify them. Maybe they're using your product the most, or maybe they're leaving you great reviews. It's very easy to find and segment your VIP users, which are your core users. Then you would identify a task that they frequently complete. What task would they like to complete? Then you can take that task and break that down into subtasks. So for example, they log into the website, they click a link, they do X, Y, and Z. So you identify that task, you break it down into subtasks. Then you look and see if you can identify any major pain points within those subtasks. now what you can do is you can write a user story for that specific subtask. And that's going to fix the second problem that I had when I first started writing user stories, is that my user stories were way too big. And you don't want to overscope your user stories, because now you've got your software engineers, designers, product managers struggling to be able to implement it because they don't know what to do, because it's just way too much. So number one, you want to identify how you build, develop, and optimize features. And number two, you want to make sure that it's small enough to where you could complete that in a short period of time, anywhere from a week to a month. If you can't test a user story in a week or a month, the user story is way too big. So let's move on to the next step and look at how we can practice this and get some experience writing user stories. So now that you understand the concept of how to write great user stories, let me teach you how to apply that. So if you just understand the concept of writing great user stories, but you haven't actually practiced it, you're not going to be good at it, right? This is something that if you really want to get good at, you have to practice. There's no other way. You can only watch so many videos. Okay, so if you'd like to get really great at writing user stories, I have a recommendation for you. So before practicing in a business setting, my suggestion is you can practice in your personal life. Now there's two areas that really affect you that can have a big impact. So let's talk about your schedule and let's talk about organization. And I'll give you an example for one. So take a look at your schedule for the week and pick out something and try to figure out, are you actually benefiting from the way that you're spending your time? So chances are you can probably find something that you're doing during the week that you're not totally satisfied with. So what you can do is you could take that and replace it with something better. So you test it out. So if you have that option, you can cancel that week, not do the thing that you would do normally, and schedule something else and see if that's better. So that's one option for making an optimization. Another option is, let's say with organization. I promised you that I'd give you an example. So I'll give you an example. I had something that was sitting under my bed that was never getting used. It was the DSLR camera, and originally I purchased it to use it for creating YouTube videos. But the problem was it was just sitting under my bed and I never used it. So I decided that I would replace the camera with something better. And I chose a webcam. And here's how I made that decision. I realized that the DSLR was too complicated, and I always ended up fiddling with the hardware, the software. It was never really easy to set up. I wanted something that could just sit on top of my computer, and when I wanted to record something, I could just go, and I wouldn't really have to fiddle around with software at all. So if I wanted to explain this to someone, how I made that decision to make that optimization from going from a DSLR camera to a webcam, I would say, as a content creator, I wanted to be able to record video in a way that was very low hassle, right? So now you can understand me as a user, my needs, and why it was important to me to use a webcam instead of a DSLR. Now, you can use both to accomplish the same task, but in general, webcams are just much more plug and play. You can plug it in, and it basically just works, and it's been great for me. So that would be my recommendation for you. If you're looking at getting started, it doesn't matter if you're a product manager or a software engineer or a designer. You want to understand jobs to be done, and you want to be able to understand and articulate the benefits and drawbacks of using different options to complete something. So that'd be my suggestion for you. First, practice it in your personal life, get that experience, learn how to make an improvement or conduct a test, and then B, being able to explain that to someone else. And explaining to someone else is really what user stories are for. So hopefully that helps. And feel free to post in the comments. Give this a try, right? So try this out in your personal life and let us know what you did and how it worked out and what would be the user story for that. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.